This video is sponsored by Squarespace, the best way to make an amazing website. Apple finally redesigned the iPad mini. We have the iPad mini 6 right here, but now the question is, should you buy it or should you spend $100 more and buy the iPad Air 4? Well, today we are gonna compare every single difference. They both have their strengths and their weaknesses, and by the end of the video, you will know which one you should buy. We'll be comparing the exterior differences, the speakers, the displays, the CPU, and the graphics performance, accessories, and more. Starting out with the exterior differences, you guys could see that there is a huge difference in size. Based on the website and spec sheets, it doesn't sound like that big of a difference, but the iPad mini 6 is much smaller than the iPad Air 4, and that could be a good thing or a bad thing. Now, looking at the backs, we have a couple differences. We are missing the little flash on the iPad Air 4. Even though it's more expensive, it does not come with the flash, and with that, also the smart connector at the bottom. And we'll go into both of those in just a little bit. As far as weight, I definitely could tell the difference. The iPad mini 6, it just feels really lightweight. I feel I can hold it all day, whereas the 10.9-inch iPad Air, it's definitely much heavier, and that can be tiring if you're gonna hold it for a long time. Interestingly, the iPad mini is actually slightly thicker than the Air 4. Now, the Air 4 also has the buttons, the volume buttons here, at the same spot they've always been, whereas with the mini, Apple has moved them right there to the top on the left-hand side because they made room for the Apple Pencil connector right here on the right side. And because the mini is so small, the Apple Pencil literally takes almost the full length of the iPad compared to the Air 4, where obviously this thing's much larger and you still have room for the volume rocker. Now, thankfully, the iPad mini now also gets USB Type-C connectivity, which means that you have a lot more flexibility than Lightning. You can use a USB Type-C to an HDMI cable instead of having to buy the adapter from Apple, which is great. It's just a lot better overall. Both of these are using Apple's new Touch ID sensor that is built into the power button, which is really handy because you could just press the power button and it'll log you in automatically and read your fingerprint. It is a little bit easier to use on the mini because of how small it is. You can reach up and access it either way, whereas with the Air 4 it's larger, so you're shuffling your hands around more so. Now, right there as well, you guys could see we have two speaker grills, and the same thing goes for the mini. Finally, the mini has speakers on both sides at the top there, and then also at the bottom, so that if you're watching a movie, a video, or a game, you hear sound from both sides, which is great. So before we jump into the screen comparison, let's go ahead and compare the speakers. Alright guys, let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below, and I will say that these speakers, in terms of quality, sound very similar. Now, the iPad Air 4 is louder, especially in the high-end frequencies. Those highs, like the vocals, they stand out more, whereas the mini, they seemed a little bit more toned down, and the bass between them, surprisingly, is about the same. So the same amount of bass, the volume, it's just the highs that stand out more so on the iPad Air 4, but let me know what you guys think down below. And now let's compare the displays. Other than the size difference of 10.9 inches compared to 8.3, which by the way, doesn't sound like a lot, but you guys can see the screen difference is really big. Everything else is very similar. The contrast is very similar. Both have the same 500 nits of brightness, so I adjusted that top camera, and as you guys can see, they are very similar in brightness. Viewing angles are also very similar. The one difference I see is that the Mini 6, it actually has a warmer white balance when you have True Tone enabled, which I do, so it's just Apple's tuning. Both of them do support HDR videos, but for some reason, when you're watching these HDR videos, the iPad mini 6 is actually brighter and HDR pops more so. Now, another difference you may notice is that the black bars are bigger on the iPad Air 4 at the top and the bottom than the iPad mini. Now, that is because the iPad mini is actually more widescreen than the Air 4 is, so the aspect ratio is a little bit different. With that said, if I was buying an iPad to watch a lot of movies or videos, I would go for the iPad Air 4 just because you have that larger display. As I mentioned earlier, both of these now support the Apple Pencil 2, which you can tap on and it charges and attaches magnetically, which is nice. With that, both of these have a 60 Hertz display, so that means there is no 120 Hertz ProMotion. So there's no difference as far as smoothness when you're flipping through these home pages or anything like that. Now, the one difference that we do have is that smart connector that I showed off at the start, meaning that you can buy Apple's Magic Keyboard and you can attach it, and then you will have access to this nice keyboard so you can type, you can use the trackpad and use it more like a laptop replacement, whereas the iPad mini 6 does not have that, so it will not be a laptop replacement, meaning the screen is not really big enough for that. But because of this new redesign, they do have a new Smart Folio, which also uses magnets just like the other tablets with this design to attach. And then not only does it protect the front, and then you can also roll this up if you want to have like a little stand for your iPad, but it protects the back as well, which is very convenient. Before we move on, let me give a shout out to the sponsor of this video, Squarespace. If you've been thinking about making your own website, Squarespace is seriously the best way to go. You could build a great looking website like we did with literally no web making experience. It doesn't matter if you want a portfolio, a blog, e-commerce, or anything else, you just choose from one of their great templates and customize blocks of text and images. It's incredibly simple, it is affordable, and ours has been running flawlessly for years now, bringing in tons of traffic thanks to its built-in SEO tools. Start your free 2-week trial with no credit card required by going to squarespace.com/maxtech or by using the custom link down below. And when you're ready to launch, you will save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. And now let's get into the performance, and I'm extremely interested in this because even though the iPad Air 4 costs more money, $100 more, it comes with the A14 Bionic compared to the A15 in the iPad mini 6. Now, as far as RAM, we used to have a difference. The iPad mini used to come with 3 gigs instead of 4. Now both of them come with 4 gigs of RAM, which is great. And as far as graphics, well, this thing has that 5-core graphics processor, but let's go ahead and start out with the CPU and let's run Geekbench 5. All right, we have our results, and this is a lot closer than you might expect. As far as single core, we're going from 1579 to 1600, basically the same, and multi-core from 4215 to 4519. Not that much faster with the iPad mini, and that is for a couple of reasons. Well, first off, the A14 in the iPad Air, it's actually faster. It runs quite a bit quicker than the one in the iPhone 12s. It's not limited by heat or thermals, it's not slowed down, whereas the A15 and the iPad mini, it is actually slowed down compared to the iPhone 13s because they want to save battery life. So that is why the scores are so close. So as far as CPU performance, there's really not that big of a difference. But now let's go ahead and go back and we are going to run the compute test, which looks at graphics. All right, we have our results, and this is interesting. The iPad Air 4 scored 12,500 compared to 13,500 for the mini. So that is because the 5-core graphics in the mini, once again, it is slowed down a little bit compared to the iPhone 13 Pros in order to save battery life. So it actually uses less power than the graphics chip inside the iPad Air. So that means less heat, less power usage, stuff like that. But of course, this tests a lot of different things. We have particle physics, we have HDR, all that. So let's go ahead and test out the performance when you're actually gaming. This is 3D Mark's new Wildlife Extreme. I'm gonna run the regular mode where we can actually see what kind of performance we're getting here. And taking a look at it, the frame rates are constantly higher on the new mini. We have 17 compared to 16, 15 over here. This is reaching about 20. Of course, they're actually a little bit off because the mini loaded this a few seconds faster. So we'll do a SSD speed test here in just a bit. Right over here, we can see that the mini is a little bit more choppy, but this is a 4K test that is pushing these really, really hard. All right, we have our results here, and it looks like the difference is very similar, slightly higher than before. We have 14.8 frames per second compared to 16, so about 9% or so. But once again, other than a few frames per second, the difference is not that big. So now let's go ahead and close this and let's test out the storage speed, because both of these come with 64 gigs of storage. They don't come with 128, and you have to spend another 150 if you want the 256 gigabyte storage upgrade option. I have Jazz Geekbench opened up right here. We're gonna go ahead and hit start on both of them. I ran this a few times just to make sure we're getting consistent results, because the results are very interesting. Over here with the iPad Air, we have a 911 megabyte per second read compared to 484. That's almost twice as fast for the iPad Air. And then as far as write, the difference isn't as big. The iPad Air is faster by about 30 megabytes per second or so. So it looks like the storage, the memory that's built into the iPad is of a higher class or faster. Now that's weird because that benchmark loaded up quicker with the Mini, maybe just because of the faster A15 processor. And now let's talk about the cameras. On the front, we have a huge difference. The iPad Air 4 has an older camera system, whereas the Mini has that new center stage camera where it could zoom out, it's an ultra wide shot, and then it can crop in digitally, so it's much better if you're gonna be using FaceTime and other meetings like Zoom or anything else. Here's that ultra wide camera on the Mini and the quality of the built-in microphones. Of course, you can record as wide as this, or you could choose to crop in to have it look more like a standard iPad. And this is the microphone and video quality from the iPad Air 4. So as you can see, if you're holding it with your hand, it is pretty zoomed in. Now you guys let me know which one sounded better in terms of microphones down in the comments section below. Now because the Mini's camera is an ultra wide, it has to crop in digitally to give you a standard photo. So go ahead and let me know, does it look much worse because of that digital crop compared to the Airs, or is it pretty close? Now here's a comparison photo using the iPad's 12 megapixel cameras on the back. You guys let me know which looks better, and both of these can record 4K 60 frames per second with those rear cameras, but only the iPad Mini has that flash. You guys let me know if that is at all important to you. And now for our verdict. Should you buy the new iPad Mini 6? Or should you buy the iPad Air 4? Well, it really depends. Personally, for me, I like the iPad Mini a lot more. I like the size. It's a size that's very convenient for a lot of things. If you're surfing the web, if you're doing email and you want to keep it in a tablet form, and especially if you're playing games, this is so convenient. It is the perfect size. Now with that, it is newer. It just got updated. It's not going to be updated for a while. It has the A15 processor. It does perform better when you're gaming. It has a center stage camera, so I would be totally fine buying this knowing that it's going to be current for a long time, and I could just take it around with me everywhere because it's so small. You just slip it into a bag. That's why I like this. Now there are reasons to buy the iPad Air 4 as well. If you're going to be watching a lot of movies, it does get louder and you have that large display. With that, if you're going to be drawing with Apple Pencil, I would definitely go for the iPad Air 4. With that, if you're somebody who just wants to take notes, the iPad Mini is great. There's enough space to write. You could do multiple pages, stuff like that. But for people that draw, for artists, you do want a larger canvas. And along with that, if you're looking for something that is a laptop replacement, you can buy a Magic Keyboard for it as well. And then this could be kind of like your main laptop that could do most of the tasks of a laptop. So for that reason, the iPad Air 4 is a lot more flexible, but you gotta spend more money and deal with the larger size and weight. And then if you wanna add on a keyboard like this, you're spending a lot more money. So that is what I would buy depending on what your use case is. You guys let me know your thoughts. If you guys have any specific questions, you guys can ask down in the comments section below. With that, you guys can press that subscribe button to help us reach our goal of 1 million subscribers. We would greatly appreciate it. Check out one of those videos right over there. This has been Max, and I will see you in the next video.